building has one exit, 47 cameras. She never left. She's not inside. Security footage proves both. This is the case that shouldn't exist. March 14, 2019. Dr. Michelle Chen walks into her laboratory at 2:57 p.m. The camera records her entering. She does not come out. Not on any camera. Not through any door. But when security checks the lab at 1:23 a.m., she's gone. Her coffee is still warm. Dr. Michelle Chen was 34 years old, a molecular biologist specializing in genetic markers for early disease detection. She'd worked at Westridge Biomedical Research Center in Portland, Oregon for 7 years. 3 patents. Leader of a 9-person research team. Colleagues described her as meticulous, private, completely dedicated to her work. She lived alone 12 minutes from the facility. No social media presence. Her cell phone contained exactly 23 contacts. Family, colleagues, her dentist, and her mechanic. Before we go further into what investigators found, or didn't find, I want to welcome everyone watching. Whether you've been following this channel or this is your first time here, welcome. If you're watching this at home, at work, during a break, on a commute, or anywhere else you've found yourself drawn into this case, drop a comment and let me know. Where are you watching from? And what about this disappearance made you click? March 14, 2019 was a Thursday. She arrived at Westridge at 7:52 a.m. like every Thursday. She nodded to the security guard, Marcus Webb, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, swiped into Laboratory 4 at 8:04 a.m. Surveillance shows her carrying her canvas messenger bag, a thermos of green tea, and a lunch container. That evening, when the building's automated system locked all exterior doors at 11 p.m., the security log showed one person still inside, Dr. Michelle Chen. By the time anyone noticed something was wrong, it was far too late to understand what had happened in Laboratory 4. Westridge Biomedical Research Center is a 6-story building in Portland's Pearl District. 1 public entrance, 3 emergency exits with alarm systems, a loading dock accessed only by facilities staff, rooftop access door with an alarm that had never been triggered since installation in 2012. 47 security cameras provide overlapping coverage of every corridor, elevator, stairwell, and entrance point. The only spaces without camera coverage are the interiors of laboratories themselves, proprietary research protection. But cameras monitor every door leading to those labs. Access requires both keycard authentication and biometric hand scanning at the main entrance. Interior doors use keycard access with digital logging. Every swipe is recorded with a timestamp and location. Dr. Chen's Thursday routine was predictable. March 14th followed her pattern exactly. 7:52 a.m. She enters the building. Security guard Marcus Webb logs her arrival. Surveillance shows her walking through the lobby, scanning her hand on the biometric reader, using her keycard on the elevator. 7:54 a.m. She exits the elevator on the 3rd floor. Cameras capture her walking down the corridor toward Laboratory 4. 8:04 a.m. Her keycard accesses Lab 4. The system logs, door opened, 8:04:17 a.m., Dr. M. Chen, Lab 4, interior door. For the next 6 hours, her keycard shows no activity. This was normal. Researchers often worked inside labs for extended periods. 2:41 p.m. Her keycard registers again, Lab 4, interior door, exit. Surveillance shows her walking to the elevator, descending to the 1st floor, entering the building's cafe. She purchases a coffee and a sandwich. Transaction time, 2:46 p.m. She returns to the elevator at 2:51 p.m. 2:57 p.m. Her keycard accesses Lab 4 again. This was the last time security cameras recorded Dr. Michelle Chen's physical presence anywhere in the facility. But her keycard activity was just beginning. 6:47 p.m. Her keycard is used to access Lab 4 from the interior. The system logs the swipe. But there's something unusual. The hallway camera pointed at Lab 4's door recorded the moment. The green access light illuminates on the card reader. The lock mechanism clicks, clearly audible on camera audio. The door never opens. For 6 seconds, nothing happens. Then the access light times out and turns red again. 43 seconds later, the card is swiped again. This time, the door opens, but only partially. It opens approximately 8 inches, pauses for 2 seconds, then closes again. No one emerges. Over the next 8 hours and 35 minutes, Dr. Chen's keycard would be used 12 additional times. Each swipe recorded by the security system, each one captured by the hallway camera. The pattern was erratic, unlike any normal behavior. 7:23 p.m. Lab 4 door access. Door opens 4 inches, closes immediately. 8:01 p.m. Lab 4 door access. Door opens fully, remains open for 11 seconds, then closes. Camera shows empty hallway. No one exits. 9:34 p.m. Lab 4 door access. Door doesn't open at all, despite successful authorization. The swipes continued throughout the night. Each one logged. Each one recorded. Each one showing no person entering or leaving. At 11:20 p.m., West Ridge's automated security system locked all exterior doors as programmed. The system generated its nightly report. 47 people had entered the building that day. 46 had exited. 1 person remained inside. Dr. Michelle Chen. Location: 3rd floor, laboratory. 4. This wasn't unusual. Researchers occasionally worked through the night. Marcus Webb, completing his 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, noted the overnight presence in his log. Standard procedure required him to visually verify that late-working personnel were safe and not experiencing medical emergencies. At 1:17 a.m., Webb took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Marcus Webb had been a security guard for 11 years. He'd done thousands of after-hours checks. This was routine. Knock, announce, visual confirmation. Log it, done. He knocked 3 times on Laboratory 4's door. Called out. Dr. Chen, security check. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Dr. Chen, I need verbal confirmation. You're okay. The fluorescent lights from inside the lab glowed under the door. He could hear equipment running, the low hum of a centrifuge, the whisper of ventilation. Someone was working. Someone had to be working. The lights were on. The door was locked from the inside. The security system showed her inside. Webb used his master keycard, the green light, the click of the lock releasing. He pushed the door open. Empty. The word doesn't capture what Webb saw. This wasn't a room someone had stepped out of. This was a room someone was in. 4 computer monitors glowed with active data. A microscope's light illuminated a slide. The centrifuge hummed through its cycle. 11 minutes remaining according to the display. A pen lay across an open notebook, as if someone had just set it down. A coffee cup sat on the counter. Webb would later tell investigators he touched it, couldn't help himself, needed to know. It was warm. He stepped into the laboratory, looked left, right, behind the door. The attached office, door open, empty. The supply closet, he pulled it open, already knowing. Empty. He keyed his radio. His voice on the recording was steady. Professional. That would bother him later. How steady he sounded when he was looking at something impossible. Dispatch. This is Webb, 3rd floor. We have a code yellow. Dr. Chen is not in Laboratory 4. Her belongings are present. Computer is active. I need supervisor to 3rd floor immediately. The dispatch operator asked the obvious question. Webb, could she be in the restroom? Webb looked at the counter. At Dr. Chen's messenger bag, open, wallet visible inside, at her car keys next to the bag, at her lab coat hanging on the hook beside the door, at her phone, dark screen, lying face down next to the sink. Negative, Webb said. All her belongings are here. Her phone, her keys, her everything. She's not in the restroom. She's not here. And dispatch. The centrifuge is running. Someone started it recently. Someone who isn't here anymore. Within 8 minutes, 2 additional security officers arrived on the 3rd floor. They began a systematic search. Laboratory 4 is approximately 800 square feet. 4 workstations, 2 fume hoods, a cold storage unit, a biosafety cabinet, and a small attached office. 1 door, the entry door to the corridor. No windows. No secondary exits. The ventilation system uses ducts too small for human passage, and the intake grates were secured with bolts that showed no signs of tampering. The attached office contained Dr. Chen's desk, a filing cabinet, and a small closet measuring 4 feet by 3 feet. The closet held a spare lab coat, emergency eye wash supplies, and a broom. Nothing else. Dr. Michelle Chen was not in Laboratory 4, but her belongings were. On the main work counter sat her canvas messenger bag, open. Inside, her wallet containing her driver's license, 3 credit cards, and $67 in cash. Her car keys, a tube of lip balm, a pack of gum, a small notebook filled with handwritten research notes dated that same day, the last entry timed at 6:30 p.m. in her handwriting. Her cell phone was on the counter beside the bag, screen dark, battery at 34%. The thermos she'd brought that morning sat beside the sink, still containing 2 inches of green tea. The lunch container was in the small refrigerator, empty and rinsed. The centrifuge was activated at 6:44 p.m. It completed its programmed cycle at 7:02 p.m. and then shut off automatically. This suggested Dr. Chen had been actively working as late as 6:44 p.m., 3 minutes before the first unusual keycard swipe. The timeline we're building from this evidence raises a critical question. What happened in those 3 minutes between 6:44 p.m. and 6:47 p.m.? If this case has you questioning how someone vanishes from a secured building, leave a comment with your theory. We read every response. And if you're following along with the evidence, hit that like button. It helps this investigation reach people who might have information. On March 16th, 2 days after Dr. Chen's disappearance, Portland police executed a comprehensive search of the entire Westridge building. 53 officers, 4 K-9 units, and specialized search teams swept every floor, every room, every closet, every utility space. They searched the basement level containing mechanical systems and storage, the parking garage's 5 levels, all 6 floors of office and laboratory space, the rooftop access area, every restroom, supply closet, and utility corridor. They found no sign of Dr. Michelle Chen, no trace evidence, no indication she'd been anywhere in the building except Laboratory 4 and the 3rd floor corridor. Building management provided architectural plans for the facility. Detective Holland studied them carefully, looking for spaces not visible on the plan's main layouts, maintenance crawl spaces, utility chases, areas between floors. The building did have several such spaces. A 3-foot crawl space between the 3rd and 4th floors housed HVAC ductwork and electrical conduits. Access required removing ceiling panels from the 3rd floor corridor. Police checked this space. It was dusty, showing no signs of recent disturbance, and too small for an adult to move through comfortably. More importantly, accessing it would have required a ladder. There was no ladder in or near Laboratory 4. The elevator shafts were inspected. Nothing. The areas behind walls in bathrooms, checked during a renovation 5 years prior, and not modified since. Nothing. The loading dock became a focus of investigation. This area, located on the ground floor at the building's rear, was used for deliveries and waste removal. The dock's steel roll door was controlled by a keypad system. Only facilities staff had access codes. The door's opening and closing was automatically logged. On March 14th, the loading dock door was opened twice, 9:47 a.m. for a delivery and 2:15 p.m. for a waste removal service. Both times corresponded to scheduled appointments. Both times, building security personnel were present to supervise. Both times, the door was closed and secured within 10 minutes. Security footage of the loading dock showed both operations clearly. No unauthorized persons accessed the area. No one resembling Dr. Chen appeared anywhere near the loading dock that day. The emergency exits presented another possible explanation. 3 exits, on floors 1, 3, and 5, would trigger alarms if opened. The building's alarm system was monitored 24/7 by a third-party security company. Their logs showed no emergency exit alarms triggered on March 14th or 15th. However, Detective Holland requested a physical inspection of each emergency exit. On March 18th, a specialist examined all 3 doors. The third-floor emergency exit, located approximately 60 feet from Laboratory 4, showed something unusual. The door's alarm sensor, a magnetic contact switch, had a small piece of tape placed over the magnet housing. The tape was clear packing tape, positioned precisely to prevent the magnetic contact from separating when the door opened. This would prevent the alarm from triggering. The specialist noted, "This bypass is unsophisticated but effective. Someone with basic knowledge of magnetic alarm systems could implement it in under 30 seconds. This discovery changed the investigation's direction. If the alarm had been bypassed, Dr. Chen, or someone else, could have potentially exited through the emergency door without triggering a response. But there were problems with this theory. First, the emergency exit door was visible on a hallway camera. Footage review showed the door remained closed throughout March 14th and 15th. No one approached it. No one opened it. Second, the emergency exit led to an exterior stairwell descending to a locked gate at street level. That gate's lock showed no signs of tampering. It was secured with a chain and padlock that hadn't been opened since a fire inspection 3 weeks earlier, evidenced by an inspection tag still attached to the lock. Third, the tape on the alarm sensor was weathered. A forensic examination determined it had been in place for at least several weeks, possibly months. It was not placed recently. The tape was old, weeks old, possibly months, which meant someone had bypassed this alarm long before March 14th. Someone had been planning. Or someone had been using this exit regularly. Building security reviewed their logs going back 6 months. What they found in that data would implicate someone no one had considered. We'll come back to that. Detective Holland expanded the investigation to Dr. Chen's personal life. Her apartment was searched on March 17th with her sister Linda's consent. The studio apartment in Portland's Hawthorne district was orderly and sparsely furnished. A bed, a desk, a small bookshelf, a table with 1 chair. Her desk contained research papers and textbooks. Her closet held 9 days' worth of clothing, simple, practical items. Her refrigerator contained meal prep containers labeled with dates, green tea, and basic groceries. Her bathroom cabinet contained standard toiletries. The apartment showed no signs of planned departure. Except for one thing. Something so small that the first officer missed it entirely. It was Linda Chen, Dr. Chen's sister, who noticed it 3 weeks later when she came to collect some belongings. What she found would change how investigators understood the week before Michelle disappeared. But we'll return to that discovery. Her laptop, a personal device separate from her work computer, was examined. Her browsing history showed academic research, online grocery orders, and occasional streaming video service. No unusual searches, no travel bookings, no correspondence suggesting plans to leave. Interviews with Dr. Chen's family painted a picture of a woman who was intensely private, but not secretive, dedicated to her work, but not obsessive, and reliable to the point of predictability. Her sister Linda provided the most detailed background. Michelle and I were close, but she kept her life compartmentalized. She didn't talk much about work, confidentiality agreements, she said. She didn't date anyone as far as I knew. She had colleagues, but not what you'd call close friends. She called me every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. We'd talk for 20 to 30 minutes. She never missed a call in 3 years. When she didn't call on March 19th, that's when I started calling police repeatedly. Dr. Chen's financial records showed no irregularities. Her bank accounts reflected a modest lifestyle. Regular paychecks deposited, routine bills paid automatically, small purchases for groceries and necessities. No large withdrawals, no unusual transactions. On March 14th, her only purchase was the coffee and sandwich at the Westridge Cafe at 2:46 p.m. Transaction amount $8.47. Her credit cards showed no activity after March 14th. Her debit card showed no ATM withdrawals after March 13th, when she withdrew $60 from a branch near her apartment. Her cell phone records showed no unusual call patterns. Regular calls to her sister, occasional calls to colleagues, one monthly call to her mother in California. No calls to unknown numbers in the weeks before her disappearance. At 9:43 p.m. on March 14th, Dr. Chen's phone received that notification we mentioned earlier. It wasn't a text message. It wasn't a phone call. It was a Bluetooth pairing request. Someone's device had attempted to connect to her phone. The phone was sitting on the laboratory counter, untouched, locked. But something, or someone, had been close enough to trigger a Bluetooth connection attempt. Close enough to be within 30 feet of her phone. At 9:43 p.m., in an empty laboratory, the Bluetooth log showed the device name MB Personal. Police traced every device registered to Westridge personnel. No matches. The device that attempted to pair with Dr. Chen's phone has never been identified. By the end of March 2019, Portland police had conducted 47 interviews, reviewed 629 hours of security footage, processed 183 pieces of evidence, and executed 12 search warrants. They had no suspect, no clear motive, no evidence of foul play except for a woman who simply wasn't where she should be. Detective Holland wrote in his case summary, "Every investigative avenue leads to the same impossibility. Dr. Chen was last seen on camera entering Laboratory 4 at 2:57 p.m. on March 14th. She did not leave the building through any monitored exit. She is not in the building. These facts cannot coexist, but they do." Let's stop here and rewind. We've been following this case forward, from the moment Dr. Chen entered to the moment she was discovered missing. But that's not how Detective Holland solved cases. He worked backward. So let's do that now. 3:22 a.m. A warm key card on a stairwell landing. Work backward. Where did this card come from in the last 60 seconds? Answer: nowhere. No one approached that location. So where did it come from in the last 60 minutes? Still nowhere. Work back further. The last documented location of this card, 6:28 p.m., in Dr. Chen's possession, inside Laboratory 4. 9 hours between those 2 points. And in those 9 hours, this card moved through the building 14 times, while its owner appeared nowhere. This isn't a missing person. This is a missing person's key card, walking itself through a building. In April 2019, forensic digital specialist Sarah Kingsley did something no one had thought to do. She didn't just review what the security system recorded. She reviewed how the system recorded it. She examined the building's security database logs, not the access records themselves, but the metadata, the timestamps, the data flow patterns, the connectivity status between the card readers and the main server. And she found a hole in time. March 14th, 6:51 p.m. For exactly 17 seconds, the connection between the main security server and the third-floor access panel, the panel controlling Laboratory 4's card reader, went dark. Kingsley pulled up the technical logs and showed Detective Holland the raw data. 6:51:4 p.m. Connection status, normal. 6:51:9 p.m. Connection status, interrupted. 6:51:26 p.m. Connection status, restored. 17 seconds, Kingsley said. The reader and the server couldn't talk to each other for 17 seconds. Holland asked the question, what happens to keycard swipes during that gap? They're stored locally in the reader's memory. When connection restores, they upload to the main server. But here's the problem. They don't upload with the time they actually occurred. They upload with the time the server receives them, which could be seconds, minutes, or hours later, depending on how much data is queued. Holland understood immediately. The timestamps might be wrong. The timestamps are definitely wrong for any swipes that happened during that 17-second window. We just don't know which swipes those are. Holland looked at the timeline they'd built. 14 keycard swipes between 6:47 p.m. and 3:22 a.m., spread across 9 hours. A pattern that made no sense. Doors opening partially, doors not opening at all, doors opening to empty hallways. What if they weren't spread across 9 hours? Holland asked. What if someone used the card multiple times during those 17 seconds? The reader would store each swipe. Then, when connectivity restored, it would upload them one by one. But the server would log each upload with the current time, not the original time. Kingsley nodded slowly. That would explain the pattern. Someone uses the card rapidly. Swipe, 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 trying to get the door to work during a system malfunction. The reader stores all those attempts. Hours later, they're still uploading, getting logged with timestamps that make them look like they happened throughout the night. Holland grabbed the evidence log, looked at the keycard swipes again. 6:47 p.m. Door unlocks, doesn't open 7:23 p.m. Door opens 4 inches, closes 8:01 p.m. Door opens fully, no one exits. 9:34 p.m. Door doesn't open, despite authorization. Or, Holland said quietly, someone knew about the connectivity gap. Someone who understood the system well enough to exploit it. Swipe the card during the blackout, and the system can't record it in real time. It gets logged later with false timestamps, which means whoever used that card could have been long gone before the system ever recorded what happened. Kingsley pulled up 6 months of system logs. These brief connectivity interruptions happen occasionally, 23 times in the previous 6 months, 8 to 12 seconds each. Normal network behavior. Anyone monitoring the system would know they occur. Anyone like a researcher who worked in the building every day? Holland asked. Anyone like that, Kingsley confirmed. The timeline they'd been following for 6 weeks, the careful reconstruction of Dr. Chen's final hours based on those 14 keycard swipes, was potentially fiction. The swipes were real. The times were not. And if the times were wrong, everything they thought they understood about her disappearance was wrong. This technical discovery means the timeline we've been following might not be accurate. If you're trying to make sense of this, along with investigators, hit that like button and subscribe. We're breaking down cases where the evidence itself becomes questionable. In May 2019, Portland police brought in Dr. Harold Vance, a security systems consultant with 30 years of experience. Vance spent 3 days examining the Westridge security infrastructure. His final report, submitted May 18th, included a section that would redefine how investigators understood the building's coverage. While the facility's 47 cameras provide comprehensive visual monitoring, their positioning creates what I term shadow corridors, brief pathways where a person could move between two camera angles without being clearly visible on either. These shadows are typically 2 to 4 feet in length and result from the camera's fixed mounting angles and the natural blind spots at their periphery. On the third floor, there are 3 such shadow corridors. One exists between the camera monitoring the elevator area and the camera monitoring the main corridor. One exists between the main corridor camera and the camera monitoring the laboratory wing. And one exists in the corridor leading to the emergency exit stairwell. A person familiar with these camera positions could potentially move through these shadows without being clearly recorded, though they could not traverse an entire corridor without being captured at some point. Detective Holland requested that Vance analyze the security footage, specifically looking for evidence of someone potentially using these shadow corridors on March 14th. Vance reviewed the footage from 6:30 p.m. to midnight. His findings. At 7:14 p.m., there was a momentary visual artifact on the main third-floor corridor camera. The image pixelated briefly, less than 2 seconds, then restored to normal clarity. This type of artifact was consistent with a temporary data transmission issue between the camera and the recording server. During those 2 seconds of pixelation, someone or something could have moved through that corridor segment without being clearly recorded. But Vance noted, even if someone moved through during the artifact, they would have been visible on adjacent camera angles immediately before or after. There's no evidence of any person in the corridor at 7:14 p.m. on any camera. Dr. Vance identified 3 shadow corridors on the third floor, and then he checked something. He requested Dr. Chen's security badge access history, not just for March 14th, but for the previous 6 months. The pattern he found was disturbing. For 6 months prior to her disappearance, Dr. Chen's arrival and departure times had been varying. Not dramatically, but consistently. She'd arrive at 7:52 a.m. one day, 8:14 a.m. another day, 7:41 a.m. another. She'd leave at different times, sometimes 5:30 p.m., sometimes 6:15 p.m., sometimes 7:45 p.m. Her routes through the building varied. Sometimes she'd take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sometimes she'd use the restroom on the second floor instead of the third. Vance's assessment. This pattern suggests familiarity building. She was learning the building's rhythms, learning camera angles, learning timing patterns. Whether this was conscious or unconscious, I cannot determine. But the data shows adaptive behavior. The emergency exit alarm bypass, that piece of tape found on the third-floor exit. Building security reviewed their badge access logs for the 6 months prior to March 14th. They were looking for patterns. People who accessed the third floor during times when that emergency exit could have been used without witnesses. 47 people had regular third-floor access, but only 12 had accessed that floor during evening hours, after 6 p.m., more than once in the 6-month period. Dr. Michelle Chen was one of them. She'd worked late 23 times, and on 14 of those occasions, she'd been the only person on the third floor after 8 p.m. The emergency exit would have been unwatched. The hallway camera covered the door, but the angle didn't show if the door actually opened, only if someone approached it. In June 2019, Portland police received a call from a woman named Patricia Greenwood. Greenwood lived in an apartment building 4 blocks from Westridge Biomedical. She'd been following news coverage of Dr. Chen's disappearance. She had information that might be relevant. On the evening of March 14th, Greenwood had been walking her dog at approximately 8:30 p.m. She'd passed a woman standing on the sidewalk near the entrance to Westridge's parking garage. The woman was Asian, appeared to be in her 30s, and was wearing dark clothing. Greenwood had noticed her because the woman seemed disoriented. looking around as if lost or confused. Greenwood had asked if she needed help. The woman had shaken her head and walked away quickly, heading north on 10th Avenue. Greenwood continued her walk and thought nothing more of it until seeing Dr. Chen's photo in the news. Detective Holland showed Greenwood a photo array, 6 photographs of Asian women of similar age and appearance. Greenwood selected Dr. Chen's photo. "I'm about 70% certain that was her," Greenwood stated. "But it was evening, and I only saw her for maybe 10 seconds. Let's put the two realities side by side." Patricia Greenwood, 70% certain that was Dr. Chen. Outside the building at 8:30 p.m. Parking garage cameras. 47 people exited this building between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Not one matches Dr. Chen's description. Not one is unaccounted for. So either 47 cameras malfunctioned in perfect coordination to hide one person, or Patricia Greenwood saw something that wasn't there. Or, and this is what Detective Holland's notes suggest he privately believed, she saw exactly what she described. A woman who looked like Dr. Chen, standing outside a building that woman had never left. If Patricia Greenwood's identification was correct, Dr. Chen had been outside the Westridge building at 8:30 p.m. on March 14th, approximately 90 minutes after the last confirmed camera footage of her inside the facility. But there were significant problems with this sighting. First, Dr. Chen's car remained in the parking garage. If she'd left the building, she'd left on foot, without her belongings, and without using the vehicle she'd arrived in that morning. Second, Greenwood described the woman as wearing dark clothing. Dr. Chen was last seen on camera wearing a light blue button-down shirt and gray slacks, not particularly dark. Third, every camera angle showing the parking garage entrance recorded no one matching Dr. Chen's description, exiting between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. The garage entrance was one of the most heavily monitored areas due to vehicle traffic. Detective Holland noted in his report, "The Greenwood sighting is potentially significant but raises more questions than it answers. If this was Dr. Chen, how did she exit the garage area without being recorded? If it wasn't Dr. Chen, the resemblance represents a concerning coincidence." The investigation expanded to canvas businesses and residences within a 6-block radius of Westridge. Police collected security footage from 23 locations: retail stores, apartment buildings, office complexes. They were looking for any sign of a woman matching Dr. Chen's description on the evening of March 14th. The review took 4 weeks. In that footage, investigators identified 17 women who superficially resembled Dr. Chen, Asian, approximately the same age and build. But none of these women, when their movements were fully traced through multiple camera angles, could definitively be identified as Dr. Chen. More frustratingly, none of these women appeared in the immediate vicinity of Westridge. They were all at least 3 blocks away. In August 2019, 5 months after Dr. Chen's disappearance, her sister Linda hired a private investigator named Marcus Trent. Trent specialized in missing persons cases and had 20 years of experience. He requested access to all police case files and evidence, which Detective Holland approved. Trent spent 6 weeks reviewing the materials. His conclusions, submitted in a report on October 3, 2019, challenged some of the investigation's assumptions. The prevailing theory has been that Dr. Chen left Westridge Biomedical through some method that evaded camera coverage. I propose an alternative. She never left. The building has been searched, but not exhaustively in terms of concealed spaces that might not appear on architectural plans. Older buildings often have voids between walls, sealed-off utility areas, or modification spaces created during renovations that were never properly documented. I recommend a comprehensive structural survey using ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging to identify any anomalous spaces within the walls or floors. The investigator made one more recommendation, something he didn't put in his written report, something he told Detective Holland in person, quietly, in a conversation that was never officially recorded. Holland followed that recommendation. What it led to wouldn't be discovered for another 4 months. Portland police, in cooperation with Westridge Building Management, conducted the structural survey Trent recommended. In November 2019, a specialized team used ground-penetrating radar on all 6 floors of the facility, focusing particularly on the 3rd floor where Laboratory 4 was located. The survey identified 3 anomalous readings, spaces behind walls that appeared hollow but had no documented access points. The largest was a void approximately 6 feet by 4 feet, located in a utility chase between the 3rd floor men's restroom and an adjoining storage closet. On November 14, 2019, contractors removed a section of wall to access this void. Inside was empty space containing old electrical conduits that were no longer in use, some abandoned HVAC ducting, and a significant accumulation of dust. There was no evidence anyone had accessed this space in years. More importantly, there was no way to access it without removing the wall, which clearly hadn't been disturbed. The other 2 anomalous readings revealed similar results. Empty structural voids, with no access points, and no evidence of recent disturbance. Linda Chen's discovery in her sister's apartment. The detail she noticed 3 weeks after the initial search. It was a calendar, a wall calendar in Dr. Chen's kitchen. March 14th had a small notation in pencil, nearly invisible unless you looked closely. Late. Verify 4B. March 15th, the day after her disappearance, had another notation. Early. Review results with RT. RT was Dr. Robert Torres, her research partner. The notation suggested she'd planned to be in the lab early on March 15th to discuss results with him. She'd planned for a tomorrow that never came. But there was one more notation. March 21st, 7 days after her disappearance. A single word. Exit. Police showed this to Linda. She had no explanation. Michelle had never mentioned plans for March 21st. The word exit had no context, no additional detail, just that single word. When Detective Holland asked Dr. Torres about March 21st, he had no knowledge of any planned event. No conference, no presentation, no reason for that notation. Exit remained unexplained. In March 2020, 1 year after Dr. Chen's disappearance, her family held a memorial service in Portland. Linda Chen spoke briefly to gathered friends and colleagues. "We don't have closure. We don't have answers. We have a brilliant scientist, a loving sister, a dedicated daughter who was here one moment and gone the next. Someone knows what happened to Michelle. Someone saw something. Someone knows something they haven't shared. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant it seems, please come forward." The memorial was attended by 73 people. Several of Dr. Chen's colleagues spoke about her work, her precision, her dedication. Dr. Robert Torres, her research partner, described their final exchange. "The last text she sent me was about data that looked strange. That was Michelle, always questioning, always verifying. She wouldn't accept results that didn't make sense until she understood why. I keep thinking about that data file, those strange results she wanted to verify. I've wondered if there was something in that work, something someone didn't want discovered. But I've reviewed it dozens of times. It's just science. Nothing sinister. Nothing worth harming anyone over." The data file Torres mentioned, the one showing unexpected results in a control sample, was examined by multiple independent scientists at Portland Police's request. All confirmed Torres's assessment. The results showed a minor anomaly consistent with common laboratory issues like contamination or calibration error. There was nothing in the data that would warrant concern beyond standard scientific protocol. Dr. Chen's research, the genetic marker study she'd been conducting, was ultimately completed by her research team and published in a scientific journal in late 2020. The published paper included an acknowledgement. This work is dedicated to Dr. Michelle Chen, whose meticulous approach and unwavering commitment to accuracy set the standard we strive to maintain. In January 2020, the case gained national attention when a podcast called Vanished featured Dr. Chen's disappearance in a 3-episode series. The podcast brought forward 6 additional witnesses who claimed to have seen someone resembling Dr. Chen in various Portland locations between March 15th and March 30th, 2019. Each sighting was investigated. None could be confirmed. In several cases, the person spotted was identified as someone else. In others, the witness's certainty wavered upon detailed questioning. Detective Mark Holland retired from Portland Police in 2022. In an interview conducted for this video in September 2024, he reflected on the Chen case. This is Detective Holland's voice memo, recorded March 27, 2019, not included in official case files. It's 2 a.m. I've watched the footage 80 times. I keep seeing the same nothing. The door unlocks. Nobody comes out. Her card is used. Nobody uses it. I've worked homicides, abductions, runaways. People leave traces. People make mistakes. People are visible. She's not. She's just not. And I don't know if that means I'm missing something obvious or if something happened here that I don't have a category for. Holland never officially reported what he meant by something I don't have a category for. But in conversations with colleagues, he used a different phrase: spatial anomaly. As if Dr. Chen hadn't just left the building, as if she'd left space itself. Remember the warm keycard found in the stairwell? The detail that made Detective Holland's hand shake? 3 weeks after it was recovered, the forensic analysis came back. The keycard's magnetic strip showed unusual wear patterns, specifically degradation consistent with repeated rapid swiping. Dozens of swipes in quick succession. The type of wear you'd see if someone swiped a card over and over and over, trying to make a malfunctioning reader work. But here's what troubled forensics. The wear pattern was recent. Days old, not months. Which meant someone had used this card repeatedly in rapid succession shortly before it was found. The connectivity gap at 6:51 p.m. lasted 17 seconds. In 17 seconds, how many times could someone swipe a keycard? The forensic specialist tested this. Using a similar card reader, they attempted rapid swipes. Average person, 11 swipes in 17 seconds. Someone frantic, desperate, up to 19 swipes. The wear pattern on Dr. Chen's keycard was consistent with 15 to 20 rapid swipes. All of those swipes would have been stored in the card reader's local memory during the connectivity interruption. All of them would have uploaded later with false timestamps, which means the 14 keycard swipes spread across 9 hours might have actually occurred in 17 seconds of frantic swiping at 6:51 p.m. Someone was trying to get out, or trying to get in, using that card over and over and over during the brief window when the system couldn't record it in real time. And then the card ended up warm on a stairwell landing 9 hours later. We've covered the evidence, the investigation, and the theories, but the central question remains unanswered. If you think there's something in this case that deserves more attention, share this video. Sometimes missing persons cases get solved because the right person sees the right detail. The Westridge Biomedical Research Center continues to operate. Security protocols were upgraded in 2020, additional cameras installed, the emergency exit alarm system replaced with a more sophisticated design, and access control procedures enhanced. Laboratory 4, where Dr. Chen last worked, was reassigned to a different research team in late 2019. During the renovation, construction workers found something behind the wall near the door. Something small. Something that had been there since before March 14th. Building management chose not to release what it was. To this day, only 4 people know what was found in that wall cavity. Dr. Michelle Chen has now been missing for 5 years and 9 months. She would be 40 years old. Her driver's license has been flagged in national databases. Any attempt to use it would trigger an immediate alert. Her social security number is monitored. Any employment, banking activity, or government interaction would be flagged. Her dental and medical records are in the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. In 5 years and 9 months, there have been no confirmed sightings, no activity on her financial accounts, no contact with family or colleagues, no remains discovered. In December 2023, Portland police received an anonymous tip through their online submission form. The message was brief. Check the old plans, before 2012 renovation. There's a space that's not on the current blueprints. Detective Sarah Morrison, who'd inherited the Chen case after Holland's retirement, requested pre-renovation architectural plans from the city's building permit archives. The original plans, from when the building was constructed in 1987, showed a different internal layout. During the 2012 renovation that converted the structure into Westridge Biomedical Research Center, several walls were moved, utility chases were reconfigured, and 2 small service elevators were removed and sealed. The sealed elevator shafts were documented in the renovation plans. They'd been filled with concrete, and the access doors were removed. But Detective Morrison noticed something. The original plans showed the 3rd-floor service elevator shaft positioned directly adjacent to where Laboratory 4 would later be constructed. In February 2024, building management agreed to have the wall between Laboratory 4 and the sealed elevator shaft examined. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed the shaft was filled with concrete as documented. But the radar also showed an anomaly. A void space approximately 3 feet wide within the concrete fill, running vertically alongside where the laboratory wall now stood. Contractors drilling core samples to examine this void found that it contained air, not solid concrete. The void appeared to be an inadvertent gap created during the concrete filling process. A space along the shaft's edge, where the concrete didn't completely fill during the 2012 renovation. The void was too narrow for an adult to fit through. It extended from the 3rd floor to the basement level, a vertical gap in the concrete with no access points. But its existence proved that the building contained spaces not documented on current plans. The discovery of the undocumented void didn't solve Dr. Chen's disappearance, but it confirmed what Marcus Trent, the private investigator, had suggested in 2019. This building contains spaces that aren't on the blueprints. Detective Morrison continues to investigate. The case remains open and active. On Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m., Linda Chen's phone rings. Or rather, it doesn't ring. She's the one calling. Has been calling. Every Tuesday for 5 years and 9 months. Same number. Same time. 297 consecutive calls to her sister Michelle. The voicemail box filled up after 3 months. 27 messages. Michelle, it's me. Call me back. Please. After that, the automated message. The mailbox is full and cannot accept messages at this time. Linda doesn't leave messages anymore. She just listens to the automated voice. The number you have called is not available. Please try your call again later. She's tried 297 times. She'll try again next Tuesday. On November 8, 2023, Detective Sarah Morrison received a call from Westridge Biomedical Building Security. A researcher hadn't exited the building. Security logs showed them inside. Visual sweep showed them gone. For 1 hour, Morrison believed it was happening again. She arrived at Westridge at 11:47 p.m., took the elevator to the 4th floor. The researcher, Dr. James Sato, was found in a supply closet. He'd fallen asleep during a late work session, exhausted, disoriented when security woke him, but present, physical, accounted for. Morrison stood in that 4th floor corridor after Dr. Sato had been sent home. She was 1 floor above where Dr. Michelle Chen had last been seen. She could hear the building's ventilation system, the hum of elevators, the buzz of fluorescent lights. She thought about the panic she'd felt during that 1-hour window, the certainty that this building had taken someone again, the relief when Dr. Sato was found alive, embarrassed, apologetic for the false alarm. And she thought about March 14, 2019, when there was no supply closet, no embarrassed researcher, just an empty laboratory and a warm cup of coffee. Morrison's case file on Dr. Chen now occupies 4 storage boxes, 612 pieces of evidence, 47 witness interviews, 3 architectural surveys, 2 private investigations, 1 federal review. The file contains security footage showing Dr. Chen entering Lab 4 at 2:57 p.m., security footage showing an empty hallway outside Lab 4 from 2:57 p.m. until 1:23 a.m., a keycard found warm in an empty stairwell, a 17-second gap in system connectivity, 14 keycard swipes that might have wrong timestamps, 3 undocumented structural voids, 1 witness who saw Dr. Chen outside a building she never exited, 1 text message, data looking strange, running additional verification, will send update by 8. No update was ever sent. What the file doesn't contain: Dr. Michelle Chen, an explanation of her absence, evidence of where she went, evidence of how she left, evidence that she's alive, evidence that she's not. Morrison has a theory. She won't speak it officially. She mentioned it once to Detective Holland, now retired, over coffee in December 2023. Holland listened. Then he said something Morrison wrote in her personal notes. "I've investigated murders. I've investigated abductions. I've investigated voluntary disappearances. This case doesn't feel like any of those. This case feels like the building kept her. Not a person, not a plan, the building itself. And I know how that sounds. I know it's not a real explanation, but neither is any other explanation we've found. Westridge Biomedical Research Center operates normally. Researchers work. Security guards patrol. Card readers log access. Cameras record corridors. The building functions as designed. But the 3rd floor is different now. Personnel don't mention it directly, but the reassignment requests tell the story. Researchers who have been assigned to laboratories on the 3rd floor request transfers. They cite personal reasons or research focus changes. Building management stopped assigning new personnel to the 3rd floor in 2021. The laboratories there are used for equipment storage now. No one wants to work where Dr. Chen worked. No one wants to be the second person who doesn't leave. Detective Morrison reviews the evidence periodically. She's noticed something about the notebook found in Laboratory 4. The detail that security guard Marcus Webb saw but didn't mention until investigators pressed him 3 days later. Dr. Chen's final notebook entry, timestamped 6:30 p.m., Control 4B showing response. Check. Contamination, calibration, prep error, run duplicate. But below that entry, in the same handwriting, was a single word written in pencil, so light it was almost invisible. Now. Not a note. Not an instruction. Just that word. Now. As if she knew. As if in that moment at 6:30 p.m., writing about her strange data, She understood that something was about to happen. Something she couldn't stop. Something she could only mark with a single word. Now, if you have information about Dr. Michelle Chen, if you saw her after March 14, 2019, if you worked at Westridge and noticed something you didn't report, if you understand what happened in that building, contact Portland Police. Detective Morrison's direct line, 503-823-000. She'll answer. She always answers, because somewhere the truth exists. Dr. Michelle Chen disappeared 5 years and 9 months ago. Her coffee was still warm when they found the empty laboratory. It's cold now. If you want to follow updates on this case and others where the evidence raises more questions than answers, subscribe to this channel. We cover missing persons cases with respect for the individuals and commitment to factual analysis. New investigations every week. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What detail in Dr. Chen's case do you think investigators should examine further? Thank you for watching.